Welcome back, everybody. It's September 28th. John Aravosis here with the Aravosis Report, our latest update on the news from the war in Ukraine. Let me get TikTok rolling here on my iPad. Introduce yourselves, say where you're from, you know the spiel. Let me get hang on, live, I tell you. It's alive. There we go. Go live. I think this is good. Yep, this is good. Anyway, hello all. Hello. We have a good amount of news today to get through. There we go. Video's ready. Boom. Excellent. Hey, copies. How are we all doing today? Jens, good to see you. Pole. There's an interesting name. Pole or Pole. I don't even know how to pronounce that. Hey, Big Hawk. Nancy, Evie, Carlos Bond. Oh, what's going on, guys? How are we today? Said good amount of news to get through today from Rourke. Where is Rourke, Tyler? Pennsylvania, maybe? I'm trying to think of the name Rourke. I don't know. Where is that? Oops. And thank you, Chad, for the gift. I saw that out of the corner of my. I was just waiting to see where Rourke is from, or where Rourke is, and I saw that out of my eye. Thanks, Big Hawk. I am doing okay. Busy day. Hey, Radoslav. How are you? Hey, Mark Star. Shane. Thanks, guys. China bought Ukrainian grain. Exactly. Corn, in fact. We're going to talk about that today. We are later on in the show. But yes, very interesting development on that front. Anyway, hello, LWD. Thank you for the gift. As always, folks, we'd wait a minute or two for folks to arrive from TikTok and YouTube, etc., because it takes a minute. Once I go live, they get notified. So I like to sort of wait a minute or two and chat with you guys while we're waiting, because that way, you know, hey, crazy American, because that way it allows a little more people to start to get here before we begin. So, hey, Nathan. All right, guys. All right. Hey, Jean-Marc. All right, guys, I think we can begin. So welcome. I am John Aravosis. This is the Aravosis Report. It is my nightly show that I do on TikTok and YouTube and everywhere else. This is why you'll see me looking back and forth. Thank you, Elizabeth. I've got TikTok over here on my iPad. Thank you, John S. Elizabeth, again, thank you. I always like to shake that thing around. Crazy American, Jazak. We got everybody on TikTok now. Kim, but and I also do YouTube and everybody else through my laptop. Thank you, Charles. So you guys will see me from time to time looking over here. Thank you, Ernie. Everybody's going nuts with the gifts on TikTok. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. So thank you, Chad. The way the show works is I go through the news. Thank you, Fred. And take your guys' questions the second half of the show. Thank you, Fred, again, and Linkaka. The way we do this is as far as if you want to support my work, which is lovely. B, if you want to get a question in now, you can always ask a super chat question over on YouTube. And I always promise, because those are donations, thank you, Adam, I will get to those as the next thing I talk about. And also, it's a guarantee that I answer your question. I answer as many questions as I can, but as you guys can imagine, there's just way too many questions. I can never get to all of them. So at least the super chat questions I will get to. Thank you, Elizabeth. And the thank you, Adventures. You guys are all over the place. And Phil Jacobs with the super sticker on YouTube. Thank you. And Carl signing up as a member. Thank you, Carl. Very sweet of you. Sweet. I'm calling everything sweet today. Very generous of you. I appreciate that. So keep the gifts coming on YouTube. Thank you, Ellie. I will also on TikTok. I will also do a shout out whenever I see the bigger gifts on TikTok, the ones that are on the screen, like we just did with, was that Ellie? I think. Yep. So thank you for that. And let's get rolling. Thank you, Nancy, as well for the super sticker. So, all right, guys. Thank you, Tattooed Mom. You're like in crazy mode today with the gifts. I like this. Thank you, guys. It helps. Trust me. I mean, I really do. Like the gifts make it so that I can keep doing this. So I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Pedro and Joe. All right, guys. So today, keep them coming though. I'm gonna start with the show, but I'll keep thanking you. Thank you, Deep Blue. So today is day 581 of Putin's 3-day special military operation. Thank you, Chad. I didn't think of that. That's true. It is payday. It's the end of the month, isn't it? Thank you, Deep Blue. So everybody's flush with money. So day 581 of Putin's 3-day special military operation. Lot of news today. The Pentagon says the government shutdown, the U.S. may shut down the government as of Saturday. Saturday is the deadline for Congress to reach a budget deal. As you may know, what's been going on is there's sort of chaos among the Republicans in the U.S. House of Representatives. We've got bicameral Congress. The Senate is controlled by Democrats. The Republicans control the House of Representatives, but each party only controls a little bit. Neither one has a very large majority at all. So that in the Senate, things are a little more, Democrats maybe are a little more cohesive in the Senate, whereas in the House of Representatives, the Republicans are not cohesive at all. So you're seeing a lot of battles going on about a lot of the budget stuff, including funding for Ukraine, has become a big stickler. The Republicans, at least the MAGA Republicans, who form a large base of the Republican Party in the U.S. House of Representatives, don't want to give any money to Ukraine. The Senate, for example, got together and did a bipartisan bill between the Democrats and the Republicans in the United States Senate, and they provided $6 billion for Ukraine, which is great. Eventually, Biden needs $20 billion, he said, but $6 billion is still really good, whereas the House is now trying to strip any and all money for Ukraine. It's a mess. So we'll see what happens on Saturday, but the news that came out today was the Pentagon said that training of the Ukrainians on F-16s is going to be a problem if the government shuts down. The training is basically going to get shut down. Now, I might as well jump ahead. I had this further on, but I might as well tell you, there is some news on the training today. Per CNN, a small number of Ukrainian pilots have started language training in preparation for their training on the F-16s. Thank you, McFadge. The language training is taking place in Texas. The idea here is there's very specific language used for the F-16s, and my suspicion is that the training materials are in English. They're not in Ukrainian. The trainers themselves, meaning what am I looking for here? I even flew in one of these things. You know what I mean? The cool aircraft training box you get in, and you pretend you're flying a plane. I'm totally spacing out. Flight. Oh, help me out, guys. Flight blah blah. What's it called? Simulator, flight simulator. Thank you. Yeah, the flight simulators, my guess is they've got to be in English. So that's going to be an issue too. If the Ukrainians are doing training on the simulators are in English. So anyway, they're giving them the English training first that they need. Then they'll start the real training. The training on the English is expected to last several weeks, after which the pilots will go to Arizona to do the actual training on how to fly the planes. The language training does not yet include Ukrainian maintenance personnel. Ukraine's going to be sending upwards of 200 of their employees for the maintenance training as well. So that point is that training is now just beginning. It's going to get shut down if the government closes down on Saturday. At least the expectation is it will get shut down. Now, Zelenskyy, this was interesting. Okay, here's an interesting story. I enjoy stories like this because basically they're stories that are a little suspicious and suggest something's going on, but we don't quite know what's going on. This is a good going on, I will say that. Zelenskyy today met in Kyiv with Stoltenberg, who's the, what do we call him? The Secretary General of NATO, okay? The French defense minister and the British defense minister. Both of them, all three of them were in Ukraine today to meet Zelenskyy. When the NATO Secretary General, and especially the British and the French defense ministers come to Kyiv on the same day to meet with Zelenskyy, something's up. This isn't just something, they all thought it was time to come visit. Not all of them coming at the same time. They're up to something. They're up to something good, absolutely. I don't know what it is, but there's something going on. I shouldn't say good. There is a possibility, too, that there's concern growing about the counteroffensive, and the defense secretaries wanted to come. By the way, they came with their top military aides. I saw the French defense minister with his top aide in full uniform. The British, do you call him the chief staff, the staff chief, something like that? He's not chief of staff. I think they call it the staff chief, which would be, I believe, their top uniformed military guy. It would be similar to the American chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He's there too, which means they wanted to bring the military experts with them. Anyway, something's going on behind the scenes. I don't know what. Always a good thing. Chief of staff for the Brits? Okay. It's a good thing. It's a good thing, but they're up to something, is my point. But We aren't going to know what it is. Now, one possibility too, I was talking to Callum about this. Callum gave me permission. Callum, I'm considering you as giving me general permission on some of these things. But we were talking about whether there's maybe a new weapon system that the French and the Brits have in common that they're thinking of, getting to the Ukrainians as well. So who knows? Freedom of Russia Legion. So you guys had asked about this the other day, which was kind of interesting. But the Freedom of Russia Legion are the Russian soldiers. Thank you, Chad. Are the Russian soldiers who are fighting against Russia, right? Who the Ukrainians seem to have armed, seem to have, done something with, but they're aiding their sort of insurgency in Russia itself. So Russians fighting Russians. What is interesting about that is there was news today. Sky News just reported. I was checking this right before coming on with you guys. Thank you, Big John. There isn't any more detail beyond this, but Sky News said there are reports just emerging that a Ukrainian-allied paramilitary group, thank you, Radifa, has crossed the border into the Russian region of Belgorod, and fighting is currently underway. So that would mean that these guys are once again harassing the hell out of the Russians in Belgorod, which is the same region they were going after before. This is the same region these guys kept invading previously to really piss off Putin and freak him out. They were taking over towns. I mean, they were doing all sorts of things to really kind of freak Putin out. They're doing it again. No details on what. Interesting, though, because this is just, it's part of the ongoing harassment, and it's good harassment of the Ukrainians against the Russians. Thank you, Kongaranga. They're trying to give the Russians somewhere else to worry about on the map because, again, the Russians are doing a big push up here. Where am I? Up here in Kupiansk, right? They've got Bakhmut to worry about. They've got the counteroffensive here. They've got the counteroffensive here. They've got Ukrainian fighting here in Kharkiv. They've got the Ukrainians bombing Crimea. Well, now, once again, they've got Russian insurgents crossing the border here and taking over or trying to take over border towns, which means, once again, the Russians are going to have to put more of their troops up here, more of their equipment, and it makes, they've only got a finite number of men and a finite amount of equipment. It makes them have to cut back what they're putting elsewhere. So that's good news. Slovakia, not such good news. Well, actually, maybe. We will see on this. There is a big national election in Slovakia on Saturday. Hang on, get my Ava map special showing you Slovakia. But where is this? There we go. Get my pen. I think it's easier with my pen. So, Ukraine right here, Russia, evil Russia. Ukraine right here, Slovakia right here, because it was Czechoslovakia when a lot of us were growing up. The country split: Czech Republic, Slovakia, Poland, Ukraine. So Ukraine shares a small border with Slovakia down here. Okay, and the Slovaks have an election on Saturday. The big concern is one of the guys who's doing very well in the polls. I would say he's tied, really. He's tied in the polls with the more, they use the word liberal. I hate the word liberal internationally because liberal internationally sometimes means conservative. Like it's in America, it means left. So the more left-wing candidate, I believe, is very pro-Ukraine. The right-wing candidate is super anti-Ukraine and super pro-Putin, pro-Russian. He has vowed that he will cut off all funding for Ukraine. Any weapons, anything they are giving Ukraine will be cut off immediately. He even said, this is the guy's name's Robert, is it Fico? I don't even think Fico. Yeah, Robert Fico is his name. The latest poll, which is good, the latest poll came out showing Fico's party with 20.6% support and the opposition, Progressive Slovakia, with 19.8%. So that's 20.6% versus 19.8%. That's a statistical tie. That's good. Now, what is interesting about this is we got 2 more days. Let's see. Neither of those is a majority, so they're going to have to form a coalition government anyway. It's as close as it could be. Another recent poll showed the good guys first and Fico's party second, but this is obviously of a concern. Now, listen to this, just a quick little thing. August 30th, so this was a month ago. A month ago, he told a crowd that the war in Ukraine began when the Ukrainian Nazis and fascists started to murder the Russian citizens in Donbass and Luhansk, which is eastern Ukraine, repeating an unfounded claim common in Russia propaganda. So not only is he putting out the Russian talking point that, it was a civil war, which it wasn't a civil war. It was literally the Russians invaded and the Russians, oh, thank you, Scott. The Russians invaded, and Nathan, the Russians invaded and the Russians fomented a fake civil war. They basically came in and just tried to make it look like a civil war so they could then send themselves, we're coming to save the Russian speakers, just like the Nazis did in World War II. We're coming to save the German speakers. We're coming to save the ethnic Russians, right? But it's bad enough he said that, okay? Thank you, lizard person. It's bad enough he said that. But then to go on and call the Ukrainians Nazis, I mean, that literally is the Russian talking point, right? It just doesn't get more than that. Really amazing. Do you know it is false? Yes, I do. Thank you, Willard. So keep in mind, the Russians lie about literally everything. And I mean, I've said this before. Thank you, Succeed and Chad. And thanks for bringing this up, Willard. I realize you're a troll, but you made this very helpful and an important point for me to bring up. So thank you for reminding me to remind everyone that the Russians literally lie about everything. I mean, quite literally everything. There is almost nothing that the Russians, and I'm not saying this as an exaggeration or hyperbole. I am saying this as a matter of politics and a matter of foreign policy. The Russians lie about everything. Other countries do not. The Americans do not lie about everything. The Ukrainians do not lie about everything, nor do the French, the Brits, the Poles, the Germans. No civilized country lies about everything. The Russians literally lie about everything. There is nothing the Russians say. Every single thing the Russians say, you need to dig 10 levels deep to find out whether it's a lie, because it usually is. I will say what is interesting about this, there's recent news coming out. Thank you, Arifa. And mods, you can already tell who the bad guys are, so get rid of them, please. I can already see the one guy just get rid of him on TikTok. What is interesting with this is what was I going to say with this? Sorry, I got distracted, which is what these guys want. Oh yeah, the Russians have been putting out videos recently, right? They keep putting out videos of not Surovikin. I'm sorry. So it's not Sokolov. What's the guy's name? The admiral who's in charge of the Black Fleet. Is it Sokolov? It's close to Sokolov, something like that. And so it is Sokolov. Okay, thanks, Kyle. And no, Surovkin's the other guy. He's the other general who's in real trouble now. I've been exiled to Africa, I believe. But thank you, Raghu. The other, so you got Sokolov and Kadyrov. Putin just did a video today with Kadyrov, who's the Chechen leader that everyone thought was dying a week ago. He's got kidney problems, liver problems, and did a quick video with Kadyrov. The Kadyrov video was particularly interesting because the Kadyrov video was apparently like for 4 minutes. It was like literally 4 minutes, the meeting. The meeting ended abruptly at 4 minutes. Very strange, right? I mean, why would these guys come? You know what I mean? Why would they come all the way to Moscow to meet Putin and meet him for 4 minutes and the meeting ended abruptly? The thinking is that Kadyrov himself, well, A, was the meeting legit? Did the meeting even happen, right? Or are we watching old video? B, did Kadyrov fall ill during the meeting? Never, here's the point. When you see evidence from the Russians, assume it is a lie unless proven otherwise. That's my point. That do not believe any of these videos are real. They could be real. I mean, they could be, but I even I make the mistake where I see these things and I will often believe they're real first from the Russians and say, oh, shoot, so-and-so made it, whatever, without realizing, without thinking twice and going, wait, we're dealing with the Russians here. You have to at least have an added level of skepticism is my point when dealing with them. Anyway, well, a lot of states, but with them especially, they just lie about everything. I mean, they really, it's a government policy. They really do. Any case, I got you on the F-16 training. Yep, we got the F-16 training. I was just going to say, make sure. All right. One of the things to do, guys, sorry, a quick little pitch for my work, 622. That's not too bad, 20 minutes in. But please do always, if you can, support my work. I appreciate it. I do this full time. I do it for free. And I've been able to do it full time because of your guys' gifts, to be honest. So please, that's why I'm always mentioning the gifts on TikTok and the gifts on YouTube. I appreciate if you guys can do it. The memberships, becoming a YouTube member, a monthly paying member, like all the folks in green, Craig and Carlos and all the rest. You can do that at the bottom of your screen. Typically near the comments, there's a little $sign, I think. If you click it, you'll see memberships. For you guys on TikTok, you can become TikTok members of my channel and give me a monthly support. You guys can also do it on Ko-fi, You can do it on Discord. You can do it on Twitch. Thank you, Nicola. Lots of different ways to support my work. If you can, I'd appreciate it, okay? All right, let's keep going. So how well is the occupation going? Well, the Russians claim that, as we talked about earlier, that they invaded Ukraine because, all the ethnic Russians in Eastern Ukraine were, I say ethnic, they're not ethnic Russians, but Russian speakers. Ukraine has a lot of Russian speakers. It just so happens that's the way it is. There's a lot of Ukrainians who speak Russian and a lot of Ukrainians who speak Ukrainian. It's just, just the way it is. Like Canada in some ways, except a little different, but still Canada, you've got, a large part of the country speaks French, largest part of the country speaks English. Well, the Russians claimed they were coming in to save the Russian speakers, as the Slovak guy who wants to be, prime minister said, right? I think prime minister. They came to save the ethnic Russians, the Russian speakers. Well, things are going so well that in the town of Mariupol, grab this and show you, Mariupol is all the way down here. Russians occupied well over a year now. Remember, the occupation includes all of this. So Mariupol, that's the city where the Azovstal fighters were fighting at the steel plant, 2,000 Ukrainians holding off 14,000 Russians. It's the city where the Russians bombed the theater that had the word children written on the side. That's Mariupol, killing 600 people that were in hiding. That's Mariupol. So in Mariupol, things are going so well for the Russians because remember, they would be welcomed like heroes, right? That the Russians have had to install 40 spy pylons around the city. They've got these pylons they set up. They're part of an electronic spy network, and they're set up to filter all the internet communications of anybody in the city and all the phone communications so they can spy on everybody. Typical for the Russian government because we are dealing with a dictatorship, but also it's just interesting to me because it does make me wonder to what degree things aren't going well for Russia. If they're thinking, holy cow, we better set up a massive spy network. Now, the other thing is Tom just wrote blow it up. And that's a good question too, which is to what degree is it hard to blow up a pylon, and thank you, Paulette. And I never did figure out how to pronounce your name, but thank you for becoming a new member. I appreciate that. Very nice of you. And thank you, Greg and Carlos. And I'm just looking at the other names here, the ones who are already subscribed. Sorry, just scrolling back really quick. Carlos, Greg, Carlos, Brendy. Okay, got a few of you. Anyway, but that's interesting. The other thing that isn't going too well for Russia, which is kind of fascinating, is their allies. There have been a lot of chinks in the armor in terms of Russia's allies, from China to Kazakhstan to Armenia. I'm going to go through each in turn. China. It is the latest information is the information coming out today is that we believe the Chinese have made large purchases of animal feed corn from Ukraine in the past 2 weeks. Traders in Asia and Europe said today, providing a boost for several traders. This is from Reuters. Several traders told Reuters the purchases amounted to several 100,000 metric tons. Well, that's interesting, right? I mean, China is potentially Russia's biggest ally in this war is Iran, okay? But China's pretty far up there, even though China's pretending they're not, they are, right? For China to turn around and do a large grain purchase from Ukraine is very interesting. A couple things. One, it certainly helps Ukraine economically. Two, it undercuts the notion of China being Russia's ally, right? I mean, you're one of Russia's biggest allies, and you're now trading with the enemy, right? I mean, China already was trading with Ukraine. They already were the biggest buyer of grain product. I think it was corn, actually, that they were the biggest buyer already, but that they're buying even more now is very interesting. Now, I also wonder how that grain is going to get from Ukraine to China. I would suspect it's got to go by sea. It's probably not going by land because it's going east. And if it's going by sea, it has to take this new route that the Ukrainians have developed, where they're basically getting around the Russians bombing them. Well, you know what I mean? If you're exporting Chinese grain it makes it very difficult for the Russians to bomb your ships knowing there's Chinese grain on them. Anyway, on multiple levels, this is very interesting. Kazakhstan, another interesting country. So Kazakhstan, traditional ally of Russia, came out today and said that they are going to comply with the sanctions against Russia. Again, this is a traditional ally, okay? They also vowed to increase oil long-term to the Germans. There was talks today in Berlin with German Chancellor Scholz and the Kazakh leader. Again, interesting, right? You're increasing oil exports to Europe, which Putin's trying to cut off. So you're doing the same thing to him that basically like the Chinese and the Indians are doing to us, where they're going around and buying Russia's excess energy. But you're also agreeing with the sanctions. And again, Kazakhstan, right? The thing is, this is part of Russia's larger network of countries. When the Soviet Union fell apart, the Russians tried to sort of keep everybody together as the Commonwealth of Independent States. And I don't even remember how many they had as part of that. There aren't a lot of them left. But just very interesting, very interesting. Now, the other point is Armenia. Armenia, this gets very complicated because it deals with the whole situation going on now with Nagorno-Karabakh, you'll hear about, which is this territory. Oh God, I don't even want to, I know if I try to even explain it, I'm going to screw it up. But it's a territory that Armenia and Armenia and Azerbaijan have been fighting over forever. Thank you, Bonnie and Scott, for the gifts. And the Russians have been traditionally on the Armenian side. Well, the Russians are not helping the Armenians here, right? They're not helping the Armenians at all. So the Armenians have had it, and the Armenians are now said that they are signing the Rome Convention. The Rome Convention is the International Criminal Court. It's the court that's going after Vladimir Putin for war crimes in Ukraine. It is not a coincidence that Armenia is signing the announced that they're signing the convention at the same time that the International Criminal Court is going after Vladimir Putin. They're doing it, and the Russians got it, by the way. The Russian spokesman literally came out and said this was an unfriendly gesture at the time that this court is doing, and he used some euphemism for what the court was doing. And actually, as somebody just said, Virgil just said on TikTok, thank you, Axel, as Virgil just said on TikTok, Serbia has been playing an interesting game too. Now, I've been following some of the Serbian experts, thank you, Martin, on Twitter. Yet another topic I'm going to be careful weighing in on because it's very complicated. Thank you, Royce. But the Serbs are playing games. They seem like they're kind of trying to play both sides. They did give, I believe, some humanitarian aid to Ukraine. They're doing some other stuff. Forget what the other stuff was. They were doing something else that was kind of bitchy to the Russians, to be honest. But the Serbs are also kind of a PITA as well, as far as dealing with NATO when it comes to it. But nonetheless, I mean, the European Union and our support and everything else. But very interesting, though, not dealing with NATO, but just European Union and just Europe and America security stuff overall. So it's just what this suggests, at least at the very least, is this war has hurt Russia's standing with, you could say it's allies, or when it comes to Russia, maybe they're not allies. Thank you, Martin. Maybe they're subjects, because if you look at Eastern Europe, what happened after World War II, the Russians literally just occupied Eastern Europe. They were their subjects. They were their hostages. So interesting that as Russia's power diminishes in this war, basically the folks on the fringe, the hostages on the fringe are starting to go, maybe we can break free, because what's he going to, they're not really business partners though. I think it's clearly things are souring. And if they are business partners, clearly things are souring and these countries are going, you know what? Maybe it's time we pull away from Russia, and maybe it's time we can pull away from Russia. That's the other interesting part, right? Because Russia's weaker. It's very interesting and not good news for Russia, obviously. Actually, that's it, because I've got the other thing was the Kadyrov meeting, which I mentioned earlier. Actually, we do have our auctions up. We'll do questions next. We do have our auctions up, the whole new slew of auctions. I showed you guys a bunch of stuff yesterday. I will show you a few of them now. What we've got is a Discord community over at discord.aravosis.com. And it's a really cool chat community. Number one thing is really Ukraine that we talk about, but we talk about a lot of other issues, Trump and elections and international stuff and you name it. And one of the things we do there is auction off cool stuff from Ukraine in order to raise money for my work, because I do this for free. And in order to do it full time, I got to pay the bills, and to help Ukraine. Because from the beginning, I just didn't like auctioning stuff without giving some of the money back if it's stuff from Ukraine, right? So 50% of the money has always gone back to Ukraine. The last auction that ended yesterday, I just sent $415 to Vlad today. Usually it's like $200 to $400 a week that I send to Vlad, and then we put into either humanitarian work, helping the military with camouflage nets, you name it. In any case, the new items are up. They end next Wednesday. Go check them out in the auctions. I will show you a few of them. This is one of my favorites because it's a Ukrainian military belt. But what is cool about it is, if you look at it carefully, you see, upside down, you see the Ukrainian, sigil or whatever, the trident in the middle. Also a very nice patina on the belt, which I like. But if you look carefully, there are two little wings sticking out here. Oops. And on this here and here, there's two little tips engraved in there. Do you see? Like a scratch, like a point. I'll show you guys. See, by this finger and this finger, there's two little points scratched in here. That is because this used to be a Russian or Soviet belt. And you can see the Russian star. And it might have been Soviet, actually, because there could have been a hammer and sickle in the middle. And the Ukrainians took this belt and basically installed a Ukrainian trident on top of the Russian or Soviet one, which I think is just wild. I saw this and I was like, oh my God, that is hilarious. So anyway, I love this because it's also kind of the chutzpah, of the cheekiness of the Ukrainians, and that it clearly was either I would say, judging by the patina and stuff, and it is brass, the belt's probably from the 1980s, 1990s, but it's very cool. So this is one of the auction items. Oops, I'm gonna put this away. I'm just gonna show you a few today. These are very cool too. This is actually quite beautiful. It's a tote bag. Oh, whoa, Ellie, thank you. Oh, that's the new one. I love that one. Thank you. This is a tote bag, but really cool because it is painted by this local Ukrainian artist, hand painted. And oops, pull it. I'm going to get that off the screen so you guys can see this. Hand painted by Ukrainian artist. And I did some research on it, and the bird in the middle looks like a peacock, but it is not. It is a cuckoo. Check this out. The bird is a cuckoo. And I wrote it up on the auction, but it has, I forget the symbol. It's some kind of symbolism for the Ukrainians because of the beauty and the colors, and it signifies happiness, and very interesting. But I just love that it's signed. The artist signed it at the bottom. But I mean, this is literally hand painted, guys. Absolutely stunning. Now, another one that's hand painted, this is very cool too. This handbag, a leather handbag that's hand painted. I actually searched today on this and found the artist online. She in Ukraine sells her own handmade, by the way, things. So it's handmade leather. She painted it by hand. It is the traditional Ukrainian design, but a modern version of it. And she did this as a patriotic statement. So it's the traditional Ukrainian, but kind of modernized. And she did this as a patriotic statement for the war. It's really cool too, because it's got a leather strap. You can see how big it is. It's got a leather strap for over the shoulder, and very cool, it also has a like a money wallet inside that's attached to a piece of leather that attaches to the purse, which is very cool too. Anyway, I just think it's absolutely stunning. Back is just, but it's leather, which is really nice. And this was actually a gift that somebody got us for the auction. I will show you two more things, guys. So two more. One, I finally have the last sweatshirt. You guys love these sweatshirts. This is the last one. My friend Vlad in Ukraine, who does all the work with us, basically linking us up with the military and linking us up with the charities, did these sweatshirts for the volunteers for the charity we work with. The charity we work with is called Harkov Mir. And Vlad made these sweatshirts in the colors of the Ukrainian flag, blue and gold. So one arm is blue, the rest is gold, and then inside the hoodie is blue. It is 100% cotton, and it is the snuggliest, thickest sweatshirt you'd ever want. I mean, they're wonderful. Well, this is a large. It's the last one we've got. And there you go. It's the last one we've got. So anybody interested? It's the last one. I'm going to ask Vlad if he's got more, but I doubt it, because they were gifts for all the volunteers. And then, and he gave me like 6 of them to auction off, and we're finally at the last one. Anna's from Kharkiv. Nice. Well, welcome, Anna. So the final cool thing we have is, and I will show you, and again, 50% of this will go back to Ukraine. 50% will help me support my work. I am auctioning off my huge piece of a Russian Shahed drone. These are the drones that have been attacking Ukraine. This one's been knocked down, so it's considered a war trophy, so to speak. One of the ones the Ukrainians stopped, which is good. But very cool, very neat piece. It's very cool too because the honeycomb is very interesting. The honeycomb they use inside the drones are really neat because it helps the structure. It makes it very strong but very light. But it's cool because it's super. I mean, this thing weighs nothing. It weighs. I weighed it. The weight is half a pound or 260 grams. Is it? Just 260 grams. So very cool. So this is I've got 11 things, but this is the big item that I'm auctioning off. And that's a big deal. And it's already up to $600. So there you go. But that's a big deal. And I'd thought of chopping it up into multiple pieces. And after talking to folks, I said, you know what? I'm not going to chop it up. If people are willing to bid, I will do one big bid on it. So that's what we're doing, and we shall see. Anyway, I'd love you to take on Orban. He's just, I really feel like Orban in Hungary. We're talking about, somebody was saying they're Ukrainian-born ethnic Hungarian. I really feel, Andre, like Orban reminds me of the old Soviet bloc satellite leaders. He reminds me of a Eastern European dictator type. But frankly, he's not alone. We've got some of them here in America too. And they've got some of them in Brazil, and they've got some of them in France. And I mean, there's a whole group of these, and now Slovakia, there's a whole group of these people, but it's really scary, really scary. I mean, again, I grew up with these guys being in power. I mean, I grew up here in the States, but I grew up when I was in graduate school, when the Soviet Union still existed, very scary. Anyway. All right, guys. Anyway, so yes, all the auctions are at discord.aravosis.com. Go check them out. They don't end until next Wednesday, so you've got ample time. But as I said, I find it a lot of fun. Thank you, Makab, because I enjoy finding stuff from Ukraine and being able to share it with folks. And again, 50% of it supports my work, which is frankly helpful because I do this full time. So I need something to pay the bills. But also, we've been able to do a lot of really cool work back in Ukraine. Just with these, actually, overall, we've raised over $100,000 for Ukraine. But with the auctions, I have to do the latest numbers. The auctions were probably up to 12,000. I have to add it up again. I think we're up to 12,000 with the auctions, in terms of how much of the auction money has gone there. As I said, 50% goes back. So anyway, very cool. So if you can help, I appreciate it. Correct. Hungary is stopping you from joining NATO. That's going to be an ongoing issue, Bodhi. That's going to be a whole other, once Turkey is fixed, Hungary's still playing games. Correct. And by the way, Slovakia could do it too. Who knows? Well, Slovakia already passed it, so I don't know that they can undo it. Slovakia already passed it, so hopefully that's okay. Alexander, I mentioned the Slovakian elections at the beginning. Thank you, Aiden, for the gift. Just to remind folks, so basically there are elections going on Saturday in Slovakia. Slovakia borders Ukraine. It's one of the NATO countries that borders Ukraine. Oops, here we go. Here's Ukraine. Slovakia is right here. Used to be Czechoslovakia, right? And then after the wall fell, after the Soviets disappeared and the Eastern Bloc got liberated, the country split into two: Czech Republic, Slovakia. Here's Ukraine. One of the guys running for, I'm assuming, by the way, correct me if I'm wrong, folks, anybody who's up on Slovakia, I'm assuming because these are parliamentary elections, these guys are running for prime minister, right? Fico and the other guy, the Michal guy. I'm assuming they're both running for prime minister, would be my guess, because they're heads of the party and these are parliamentary elections. So I'm going to say prime minister. Good. I didn't want to get it wrong because it still confuses me how you guys have presidents too. And it's very confusing to somebody who, for those of us who don't have a parliamentary system, it's always a bit like, eh. But in any case, there are now two leading parties, one more to the left, one a little more fascisty. And the fascisty one hates Ukraine. The fascisty one loves Putin, loves the Russians, and has promised to cut off all Slovakian aid, including military aid for Ukraine, 100% if he's elected on Saturday, which is very bad. So, we're going to see. The good news is, the bad news is the elections are tied. The good news is the elections are tied. So, the bad party is pretty much even in the polls with the good party. The issue is they're around 20% of the vote or so, which means they're going to need to form a coalition government because, again, very complicated. But the way these parliamentary governments work, you have all these elections, you have the election, and you might have 10 political parties or something, right? And nobody gets 50% of the vote. So you've got to cobble together a coalition to get 50%. And basically, if I get 20% and your party gets 10% and your party gets 15, if I grab your party and we're coalition, now we've got 45%. Now we need 5% more. We can get this party that got 3% and that party that got 3%, right? You cobble together a coalition, but it's not easy to cobble it together because you're taking either people on the far extreme to your left or the far extreme to your right. And at a certain point, they don't want to be part of your coalition. So who knows what's going to happen? But as I recall, parliamentary systems, whoever has the largest percentage of the vote, so whichever party gets the plurality, is the one that gets to attempt first to form a coalition government. So we're hoping it's not the bad guy. But it's bad. Yeah. It's scary. And honestly, again, we're doing it in America too, guys. This is a trend around the world, and I don't quite understand it, this sort of fascist trend, and it's very scary. And it's not just fascist, but it's anti-democratic as well. That goes hand in hand, but it really is. It's not just they want to do bad, violent things. They really hate our democratic freedoms, and they've made that very clear, these guys, in our country, but also the other ones too. Well, I'm glad if he's not fascist, but our guy is here in the States. But yeah. Anyway, what else we got, guys? What else we got? Oh, that's funny. Gunther says, I used to take the bus for €9 from Vienna to Bratislava to stock up on cheap vodka and cigarettes. They're the two closest national capitals in the world. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, right, because Austria is right across the border. Right. Estonia, the prime minister is the head of the government. The prime minister is nominated by the president. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, like I said, I don't even try as an American to understand parliamentary systems. It took me long enough to understand, okay, the percentage of the percentage, you put together a coalition, even that was confusing as hell, but that's interesting. Okay. Copies is mentioning you need to have more than 5% of the vote to even go to parliament. So what that means is, depending on the system, what the percentage is, parties that may only get 3% of the vote won't get any seats in parliament at all. Right? You've got to get 5% to get any seats in parliament. And then you try to get a majority of parliament, basically, by forming the government. Yep. Interesting. Okay. Yep. Russian and Chinese propaganda. That is true too. I knew about the Russian. I didn't know about Chinese. There's a lot of Russian propaganda going on in Slovakia that's turning the people against Ukraine and pro-Russian, which is scary. Kerch, didn't hear anything about attacks on Crimea. Was there another one on the Kerch Bridge today? I didn't see it in the news though, unless it just happened. Don't know. You lose your deposit if you get less than 5%. Exactly. That's cute. What else, guys? What else? The update on Ukraine in 30 seconds. Okay. No update on the war front. That's the big news is there's really no update on the war front at all. Russia starting to lose some of its Russia's ties to its allies are weakening. Multiple countries pulling a little bit away from Russia, which is interesting. Actually, I think the big story for today is really that the British and the French defense ministers. Okay. Oh, that looked like a medevac helicopter. Usually it's Biden, but that was medevac. The British and the French defense ministers and their top military officials were in Kyiv today, meeting with Zelenskyy, which is very interesting because something's going on, right? They don't just go for fun. They didn't just go for adjusting my lighting here. They didn't just go for sort of a nice visit because it's time. The fact that they're there together means they're up to something. The question is what? And as I said, it could be concern. They could be concerned about the counteroffensive, and they felt that they needed to go in person to try to tell Zelenskyy he needed to do something he doesn't want to do. That's possible. They could also be going because they're planning something good. I mean, that's a possibility too. They could be planning some new weapon systems, like folks had said that the Brits and the French are working on together, right? So that's possible. In other words, you get the principals together to really work out the details. You want the defense secretaries, defense ministers, the top military officials, meaning the top uniform military, because there's some deal you're trying to work out. That's possible too. So who knows? Don't know. But I think that's a big story. I'm just trying to, we just don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Well, that's a problem. Roger says after 50 plus years of communism and Soviet Russian totalitarianism, they may be craving what they knew for so long as a comfort. That's the problem with Russia right now, right? I mean, they're looking back in Russia as though the Soviet years were the golden years, right? They were respected on the international stage. Everyone was afraid of them. They claim they didn't want, but I mean, they wanted. They were a very poor country back then, but nonetheless, they're looking back at it nostalgically. So, Putin's birthday is October 7th. That's funny. Thank you, Timothy. Yeah, that could be a nice little birthday surprise for him. The Belarusians are claiming that the Poles, invaded their airspace with helicopters today. The Poles say it didn't happen, and I wouldn't believe the Belarusians. Again, they're tied at the hip with the Russians, and as I said, the Russians lie about all this stuff. I wouldn't believe the Belarusians at all. So, not too worried about it. What else we got, guys? What else? Anything else? Kerch Bridge hit anniversary. Oh, is it today? Oh, end of September. That's true. End of September, early October. Yeah. That was the first big hit on the Kerch Bridge. Yeah. It's been a year. Interesting if the Ukrainians try to hit it again as part of the anniversary. That would be, that's the kind of thing Putin would do. I don't know if it's the kind of thing the Ukrainians would do. Putin's very big on this sort of symbolism, of like hitting the Ukrainians on holidays and things like this. Hang on, I'm looking here. Just looking here to see any news here. Beep, 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 beep. No. Not seeing anything here, guys. I'm just looking to see if there's any news here that I'm missing. I mean, in terms of not news, but I mean, meaning any last minute news while we were live for the last hour here. I'm not seeing anything. I don't see. Nope. Nope. Powerful explosion in Tashkent. No, nothing. Did Ukraine knock out power again in Russia? Not that I saw. Not in the news today. They hit a military base yesterday, which was good, I believe. But no. There's no other. No, because if there was something big happening right now, people would be discussing it. There's nothing going on. Nah, there's nothing going on. Okay, all right. That's fine then. All right. Thank you, Jean-Marc. Anything else? Is Russia planning a new offensive? Well, that's interesting you raised that, because I was reading something yesterday, an analysis saying that there's no way Russia could do a new offensive for a while, that they've got to build back up, and they're basically exhausted. The Russian troops, they've used all the troops they've got right now. Their troops are exhausted. They're having to move the troops back and forth because the Ukrainians started doing better in the south, for example. So, the Ukrainians started doing much better here. So all of a sudden the Russians had to move troops from over here and in east as well over here. And they keep moving their troops around, but they're troops that are already fighting and already exhausted. So it's just getting them more and more fatigued. So, anyway, the analysis was saying there is no concern about a Russian counteroffensive anytime soon. Now, that doesn't mean the Russians can't counterattack, right? They could still keep attacking in Kupiansk in the north. They could still keep attacking in Bakhmut. So they might win a town or two. Who knows? But in terms of the big pushback, there ain't going to be no big pushback for a while. The big issue now is how long the Ukrainians can go and how much success they will have in the next month or so. New round of conscripts, they will have it. The Russians, yep, but it's going to take months to train them. And they're not necessarily they're going to be new people trained, but still. Didn't really talk about the Republican debate as it relates to Ukraine. Honestly, I skipped it last night. I so didn't want to watch the Republican debate. Did they say anything in particular on Ukraine that isn't already known? I'm sure they said the same BS as always. Callum says Ukrainians are being rotated quite well, so they are for the most part well rested. That's interesting. Okay. Yeah, because the Russians are not well rested, but if Ukrainians are, that's good news. Mom's helper is working out. We have a Ukrainian woman who's an immigrant who's helping mom now. Going very well. She seems very nice, gets along with everybody. So glad to see that. Yep. So thank you for asking. What else? Somebody said there was an explosion by the bridge, but I haven't seen any news on that. I was just checking sort of all my defense types I follow on Twitter. Nobody's talking about it. So I will say this. Typically, you got an invite to join my live? Oh, that's funny, Kyle. No idea. What do you mean to join it? Like to go live with me? You mean? Or what? Oh, that's bizarre. That's bizarre. That may explain why I have random people who are always trying to join my live. While I'm talking to you guys, there's always some rando popping up that's asking to come on and speak. And I'm like, who are you? I never thought that it was actually TikTok itself doing it. That's pretty funny. To see it. Okay, that's funny. Well, hey, at least they're giving out some requests to people. There was a fire near Kerch, not the bridge. Okay, so there was a fire near the town of Kerch, which is right near the bridge, thus the Kerch Bridge, but not the bridge itself. Hard to know too. I mean, the fire, who knows? Electrical supply for parts of the bridge. I mean, who the hell knows, right? But there's also, we often see the Kerch Bridge being sort of shut down, and the Russians are basically trying to protect it from attack, and it doesn't necessarily mean there are attacks going on. Or there could be attacks that are, thwarted. The dog is well. I don't know where she is. She's on the couch. I can see her. She's on the couch waiting for me to finish. So she's fine. The bridge is the golden goose. I mean, for me, what's going to be interesting is when the Ukrainians decide to just take out that bridge in the south, because it's the big logistics bridge. It's the big supply bridge for the Russian operation overall. And the Ukrainians keep hitting it here and there. They slow it down, right? But they basically get it so it's instead of 2 lanes, it's 1 lane. But thank you, Dr. Psyche. But I think at some point they're going to just blow the thing to smithereens. Thank you, Steve. Love my dinosaurs. The Ukrainians are going to blow that bridge to smithereens. The thing is, it's sort of a key moment when they do it, and I'm not quite sure when and why they'll do it. They could do Putin's birthday would be an interesting one. I agree. But I don't, but the thing is, it sort of fits in. It has to fit in with the rest of the operation, though. They've got to tie. Oh, thanks, Adventure. Sasha. Okay, relax. She gets up. Oh. I think the neighbor lowered his curtains again. She gets all right. Thank you. She gets very upset when the neighbor when he raises and lowers his curtains. All right. And this has now been going on 13 years now. And she sees the curtains go up and down and she gets very upset. Thank you. Good girl. All right. Good girl. What are the odds they'll destroy it with F-16s? Probably not. I mean, first of all, the U.S. may not want them using F-16s. Second of all, Callum had weighed in on this and some of the others had weighed in. Callum, I say because he's former British military just recently and is an explosion expert. And Callum said basically storm shadows. It's storm shadows you want to use. And I was seeing other people say the same thing, like ATACMS would not what you'd want to use. You'd want to use the storm shadows. But correct. Virgil's saying if you hit in the middle of the span, less damage. And what Callum was saying and others were saying is they need to go in and hit the actual pillars that are, the support pillars holding up the bridge. If they hit the spans on top, which is the road network can easily be repaired. They just literally helicopter in a new piece of road, right? But you have to go after the support, the big, tall supports coming out of the sea that are holding it up are what you really need to go after. Fire was okay. Dark Iris says the fire back to the Kerch Bridge. The fire was at the very end of the bridge, possibly a strike on the supply to maintain the bridge repairs. No injury of civilians. See, that's what I was wondering. As soon as I heard fire nearby, it made me think Is this somehow a logistics thing for the bridge or something? Power supply. Again, actually, kind of funny. Now, that's kind of funny, actually. You could potentially, if people are repairing the bridge, you blow up the facility of the people repairing the bridge. And now, because you've taken out some experts, right? You've now taken out the experts for repairing the bridge. And a lot of the other experts are going, I don't want to be there. Not that they have a choice in Russia, but still. Attackums has a 950-pound warhead version. This version would be as good as Storm Shadow. Supposedly, the Ukrainians are getting the cluster munition variety of the Attackums, but honestly, the Biden administration has still not acknowledged it publicly, so we don't know. We don't know. See what else here. Taurus is what you want, except the Germans are being jerks. They can be fired from F-16s or Ukrainian Soviet aircraft, as with the Storm Shadow. Freedom of Russia to blow it. The only problem is they've got to get there. In order to blow it, you've got to they would have to physically get to the bridge and, what do you call the swimmer guys. I'm using my Coco language. The swimmer guys, Navy SEALs types. You'd need those guys to be coming in and swimming and getting there so that they could actually plant the bombs in the pillars. I don't know Marines, but can they get that close? Tell me, Callum and others. How difficult would it be to get someone to reach the bridge by water now with all the defenses the Russians have, the netting, all that kind of stuff, right? They even dropped ferries in the water. They took ferry boats and sunk them to try to make a defense. Would it be very difficult to get the underwater demolition guys? It's doable, but a lot of them are going to get killed, I'm guessing. Is that the issue? Kind of a game of luck? Okay. So basically, either they do or don't spot you, and it's just sort of random to some degree. John is saying, why doesn't Ukraine hire the Wagner guys? I wouldn't be surprised if the Ukrainians, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if the Ukrainians decided to basically help out not help out, but to hire the Wagner guys. Wouldn't surprise me. And mods, not that you know this. You saw you got her. Anybody who says hi dear is a troll. It's an online troll, although interesting because it's an Asian thing. Usually it's not it's certainly not an Anglo thing, but hi dear. It's like, oh my God, you're a troll. Or not a troll, but a scammer. They're usually more scammers than trolls. You need to come to surface to climb and drill the pillars. Okay. So that's this part that's really dangerous, right? No. Dear is a here word. Ukraine has 2,000 special forces. That's a hell of a lot. Thinking they'll be using them on Sevastopol rather than the bridge. Well, that's interesting too, right? Because they've still got to sort of use their, use their men wisely because there's an opportunity cost. They use it in one spot. These guys get killed or injured. They can't use it in another. Anything else, guys? Well, that's the other thing. Correct. Moonbeam says, if Biden announced everything, Russia would know what Ukraine has. That's true. It's possible that somebody in the administration leaked the information about the Storm Shadows and the Attackums and shouldn't have. We don't know. We just don't know. Hi, dear. Yeah. Well, yes, the Wagner guys are acknowledged terrorists, but you wouldn't hire them. You would do the same thing you're doing with the Freedom for Russia Legion or whatever it's called, right? You would make sure the Wagner guys who are willing to fight Putin are well financed and have the weapons they need to cause mayhem inside Russia. I'd do it if I were Ukraine. Thank you, Daniel. I would absolutely do it if I were Ukraine. If it were safe, meaning, sorry, something in my eye, meaning, I don't want to be empowering Wagner guys that they're going to fight against my country. But the Wagner guys are killers. My country is at stake here. I hear you. Just wait. My country's at stake here. Thank you, Frank and Tika. If the Wagner guys are willing to, sow mayhem inside Russia, if I were Ukraine, I'd give them money. But you'd want to do it sort of quietly and whatever. But sure, And again, that's what's happening with the Freedom of Russia Legion guys. They're clearly being supported by Ukraine or maybe even a foreign intelligence service. My guess would be Ukraine. Doesn't mean foreign intelligence isn't helping them, but the Ukrainians clearly, because basically you're mayhem's the best. Mayhem's the nice word. You're causing mayhem inside Russia, and that's always a good thing if you're the Ukrainians. I did see this on, it's funny you say this. Dark Iris is mentioning checking out YouTube for how major bridges are built. I saw a video the other day on this that I thought was wild. Thank you, Super Hornet. It was just showing how something with the sand and the dirt and the pillars, and because it's pushing down, I hear you, Sasha, not right now. Somehow the pillar pushes on the sand or the ground, and somehow I don't even understand. It firms it up somehow so that you can walk on it. They were showing that they were literally putting planks. They were putting like rods of like a cord of wood or something, right? In the ground, in a muddy area that you'd sink. Okay. And it was like a piece of wood like this in the ground, and putting a bunch of them next to each other. They somehow compacted the ground so it didn't sink. It was the weirdest thing, but it's some kind of, I couldn't even tell you what the video is called. Dark Iris, they're asking, is there a name for the video or something that folks could check out? It was very interesting. Sasha, you got to wait. My dog wants, I think she wants more water, but we'll get her water in a second. Let me see here. Deep. Skin friction. It was very cool, whatever it was. Yeah, it was just very cool. Anyway, guys, it's like it's less sore to get stepped on an elephant than a woman in high heels. Oh, is it? Really? No, I would think an elephant, you're going to be dead if you get stepped on by an elephant. Are you not? Maybe not. I would think so. But sure, if you're spreading the weight apart or around, I guess. If she's wearing a course, it's Joshua, watch it. I'm not going to read those quotes. Anyway, guys, exactly. Sasha sort of gave up. She's upset now. I'm going to help her in a minute. All right, guys, I think I'm going to do the summary. Oh, it's Thursday already. Oh, well, remember Saturday morning, we have our coffee talk, which is for the paid subscribers, the paid monthly subscribers on TikTok. You guys will just come in via TikTok itself at 11 a.m. Eastern time, US, Saturday morning. Thank you, Bonnie. And on YouTube, you guys, thank you, Tomcat, for the YouTube subscribers, the Discord subscribers, Ko-fi, Twitch, all of you will join us via Discord. And it's 11 a.m. I know, sorry, it's early for some of you, but it's the best time we could sort of do. So Saturday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern time, US, TikTok and Discord, and it's for all the paid monthly subscribers. So join us if you would. Anyway, all right, let me do a quick little, no news on the tanks. Nope. Let me do a quick little summary and we are done, guys. I'm doing the recap right now, actually. You're just in time, Ima. So it is day 581 of Vladimir Putin's special 3-day military operation. The Pentagon says the government shutdown, if there is one on Saturday in the U.S., in fact, will shut down or may shut down the training for Ukrainians on F-16s, which is not a good thing. Republicans have removed $300 million in spending for Ukraine from the defense bill. Separately, the Senate got together, Republicans and Democrats in the U.S. Senate, and provided $6 billion for Ukraine, whereas the Republicans of the House are saying they don't want any. That's separate funding that the Republicans are trying to kill as well. So that's going to be a big sticking point. Let's see what happens. Zelenskyy met today in Kyiv with Jens Stoltenberg, who's the Secretary General of NATO. He also met, interestingly, with the defense ministers of the UK and France, which makes me wonder what they were up to, because they were clearly up to something. This wasn't just a friendly get-together. The question is what they're plotting something good is what I hope, but we just don't know. Freedom of Russia Legion. Sky News reports that there are reports that the Freedom of Russia Legion, which are those Russians that are fighting against Putin, and it looks like the Ukrainians helped supply them, that they have invaded Belgorod again, a province of Russia right across the border from Kharkiv, Ukraine, and blowing things up. So that's all we know about that. Slovakia is having a big election on Saturday. They border Ukraine. They're a NATO country. And one of the top, there are two parties tied pretty much in the polls. One's the good guys, very supportive of Ukraine. The other is a bad guy who is super supportive of Russia, hates Ukraine, and wants to cut off all aid to Ukraine. So that's a bad thing. Boom. F-16 training. CNN says a small number of Ukrainian pilots have begun training for language training for flying American F-16s. They've got to go to language training first to learn the specialized language, and then they'll do the flight training. Russia has installed 40 surveillance pylons in the occupied Ukrainian town of Mariupol in order to spy on Ukrainian civilian internet and phone conversations and, well, internet, anything they do on the internet and the phone conversations, which to me makes it sound like the Russians are worried about the security in Mariupol, which is good news. Importers in China are believed to have made large purchases of animal feed corn from Ukraine in the past 2 weeks. Interesting, because China is a top Russian ally. Kazakhstan confirms its intent to comply with sanctions against Russia. Interesting, because Kazakhstan was a big Russian ally. And finally, Armenia has announced it will sign the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, which are the basically joining the International Criminal Court, which is the court that investigates war crimes, genocide, etc. It's the court that indicted Vladimir Putin for war crimes in Ukraine. And Armenia is a longtime ally of Putin as well, of Russia. So very interesting that they are basically doing this as a snub to Russia, to say they're clearly doing it as a snub to Putin, clearly. And the Russians already got it and we're not happy. And then finally, the Kremlin released video of Putin meeting with Kadyrov, who's the Chechen leader, who there were a lot of reports a week ago or 2 weeks ago that he might have been dying. I mean, he is very sick, apparently ongoing, chronically, but that he might have been dying. And the video was only 4 minutes long. The meeting reportedly ended quickly. So as always with the Russians, what really is going on, we don't know, but you shouldn't just trust one 4-minute video. That is it, guys. Thank you for joining us. I am not going to, exactly, you guys go check out the auctions. I'm not going to do Discord tonight because we did Discord last night, but we could probably do it tomorrow. Do check out the auctions. We've got lots of cool new auction stuff, including the drone parts. I've also got, which I can't show you on TikTok and YouTube, but a really cool, like a rocket-propelled grenade casing that the Ukrainians turned into a candle. It's a candle holder. It's really cool. And it's from Bakhmut. It's from the battle in Bakhmut. It's, I believe, American made. But then the Ukrainians obviously used it, and they took what was left of it, thank you, Adventures, and made a candle. And it's really cool. It's really cool. Kanowski got it last time. She can tell you it's cool. But in any case, go over and check out all the stuff on Discord, and we will see you guys tomorrow. And thank you. We just hit 100,000 likes on TikTok. Thank you, guys. So thank you all for the gifts on TikTok and YouTube and Twitch and everywhere else. And I will see you all tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern Time US. And then, as I said, Saturday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern Time on Discord and TikTok for all of the monthly subscribers. All right. Thank you, guys. Have a good night. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.